don't get too worried about what you're seeing on LinkedIn and all this stuff, because that's 99% of people are not as far ahead as you think. I think starting something and with a very simple use case, just get started, feel around it, like get the feel for it, start to learn about it, because it's not going anywhere. It's going to come very quick.
Welcome to the Tech Savvy Recruiter, the podcast for recruitment and staffing agency owners keen to explore the tech innovations reshaping our industry. I'm Andrew Roger from RecMate.
And I'm Belinda Kerr from Recruitment Garage, and together we're your hosts, bringing you a stellar lineup of recruitment tech and AI experts ready to help you understand and, more importantly, benefit from the increasing array of tech available to you today.
Welcome back to the Tech Savvy Recruit, everybody. If you were back with us way back when in September 2024, you'll remember our guest today. He was the star of episode 15, and we talked a lot about reverse marketing, AI-driven lead identification, and how to turn candidate profiles into a business development opportunity. That episode landed really well, had good audience participation and lots of feedback. However, I was going to say shit ton. I can probably say that on this channel. A shit ton has changed since then. So we thought we'd bring Shaun back for a proper update around the last couple of years, what's he seeing in the market, what Floats is doing, and maybe what's next for the industry. So for those that didn't see the episode, Shaun Henry is co-founder of Floats.ai, a Sydney-based AI platform built specifically to help recruiters win more business. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shaun, in a couple of seconds. He came at this from the coalface. So he spent years as a tech recruiter, saw the same broken business processes playing out every single day for him and his colleagues. Boring PDFs, clunky email threads, and generic outreach, and he decided to do something about it. So that's how the story of Floats kicked off in 2022. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, Shaun, when he and one of his tech recruiters, who was also a software engineer and former CTO, built Floats together. So that conversation that they had early on turned into a shared frustration about how far behind recruitment had fallen as a technology user, and then transformed into a business. So without further ado, we'll get Shaun to do a little bit of a snapshot about who he is, what he's focused on, and what he's doing today. And then we'll get into some really interesting stuff around how Floats has evolved and what he's seeing in the market at the moment.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, it's 2 years, been crazy what's been happening. I suppose one of the things from what you mentioned, we did start off very much Floats, just digital snapshots of CVs, but then that led into what happens when you do get the terms and you're delivering. One of the things what happened was at the start was, you'd have somebody come in, land a 10-person project, now they're in delivery mode. So we've added in more of the submissions. We have the option of doing a PDF. We don't encourage it, but then we also then have jobs as well. So like looking at it going, can we enhance the presentation of how we're scaling and presenting jobs and candidates to the market? And a lot of AI agent stuff has went in there as well, which is a monster of a topic that I'm sure we'll get through.
Sure we will. And so the evolution's been amazing over the last couple of years. Are you seeing the speed at which you are evolving increase? And, is it as quick as most people think? The vibe coder who develops a whole product over a weekend and then it's out at the front door being used on the Monday?
Yeah, look, that's quite a topic that I think we can talk about today, is that vibe coding versus the vibe coding for one and building for 1,000, 10,000 users, and the differences there. Yeah, that's quite a big thing. Basically, from our side, all our code is now being written by Claude, where 6 months ago we have, LLM engineers, designers, software engineers that are real purists. So even they're, coming to the fore and looking at it going, right, well, is this effective? And over the last 6 months, especially, the speed and the amount of features that we've been able to get in there and stuff that has been in the backlog for 2 years, we're just pumping out now on a weekly basis. So what's happening right now is like feature fatigue. Like we're putting in all this stuff, and then it's like, how do you market that speed out? Like a lot of people don't really understand what our AI does, or the jobs are there, or this, because we've been speaking about this for so long. So you kind of have to go and look at, right, and does this change my ICP? Does this change my marketing copy or positioning? So you're kind of always kind of catching up to that. And one of the things, the speed of it is, I was quite skeptical last year, I'd say, on vibe coding. You can get 80% of the way, and then it takes like 80% of the time to get the last 20% done. But now, just even from jumping in myself, I think that's one of the big things that have changed. It's not changing how recruitment is done as it is, but it's changing who can get to build these things. Like, I think I'd done a chat with you, Belinda, and a couple that were in there had set up on their own, and they built a website in 2 days. That would have been maybe not even out of scope, but people wouldn't even believe in themselves and the confidence to even try it. But learning all these languages, so that's been amazing. Like, I've been thinking about this conversation, and I think I put my first website at 16, and it was for my dad's business, and I had to learn CSS, HTML, the Dreamweaver tool, and now
It's blast from the past there, right?
yeah, exactly. And now in an hour, you can spin up something that looks pretty decent. You might not even know what language it's developed in. So yeah, it's scary as well. Like, the speed of it is frightening. And then you start to look at it going, well, we can do everything. Should we do everything? Not really. And we're trying to solve that problem. And yeah, like for us, really at the minute, it's lightning quick.
So how do you decide, Shaun? How do you kind of go, I'm guessing it's user-led. Is it more like the request you're focusing more time on, or how do you, because you can't do everything.
Yeah, you kind of lose that niche and that like real quality when you start to spread out to everything. We kind of started at the end, and I think that is the AI mindset, is like start trying to get to the end as quickly as possible and what it should look like. So we started, I think, with one of the hardest problems is opening doors and signing new business. Like, I don't know many agencies that wouldn't like more clients coming, So we started there, really quite interesting going through that, the training and education, and then you've got technology coming into it. So what we really do is try to not build Homer Simpson's car, as we say, like, try and put everything around the business development. And then what happens is you land your terms. So then it's like, right, how do we deliver on that? How are we getting the candidates? And we sit in that marketing presentation and intelligence layer that sits on top of your data. So the way I kind of look at it going is, you've got these note takers, that's your input from your email, your channels, whatever's coming in, your CVs, and then it's your tracking or your ATS sits in there as the database. And then the next that we sit really is, what's next? How are you presenting it? Where are you sending it? Where's the details? Who's hiring? How does it look? How does it feel to the client? Not just so much like, this is the way I do it, this is my process. It's going, are we asking the clients what they would prefer? If you look at 50% of CVs being opened on a mobile, yeah, are you looking at how that comes across to them? And something happened us about a month ago. I tried to put myself into the position of somebody coming onto our website, and I looked at our just try for free, and you had to click this little text box to open up the button to sign up, and which is a massive blocker. And if you're going about your busy day, you're doing your things, and if you don't stop sometimes and go, well, what's my client seeing? What is my, the people potentially coming into my space? What are they looking in the front of shop? So yeah, we kind of tend to stay in that third section, is like, what's next? How are we presenting? How are we using data and context to improve the output? And then are we using that data that comes back to us to have better decisions on who to follow up on? So that's kind of where we sit. So everything that we kind of look at, it has to be in that third space at the minute.
I think that's such a good point you make too, about having a look at your own, what you've cooked yourself, because I've done it a few times, and you find broken links, you find all sorts of stuff, but it's something that you have to remind yourself to do because you get caught up in other stuff. So that's a really good reminder for people. Like, even LinkedIn profiles, your website obviously, but LinkedIn profiles, when I coach people and I go, how long since you look at your LinkedIn profile? And what you need to have on there is different. So, same version of that. So that's a good reminder.
Is there a statute of limitation for the photo? That's what I've got to ask everybody for LinkedIn.
When you're saying that, I'm like, I need to update mine. That's the next thing I'm going to do. Go look back and go, this needs change. You can do it every month.
That's it. I think we touched on it briefly around, vibe coding, and there's products out there. And, over the last couple of years since we've chatted, the AI recruitment landscape's changed a lot. And there's been a lot of hype, a lot of promises, a lot of products going to do A, B, C. Maybe I'd love to get your thought around what that hype versus reality is, and how, the market can get overwhelmed with all these things that are going to do this amazing transformational time saving, 15, 20 hours a week, back in my pocket to do what? So it'd be good to see what, from your perspective as a supplier to the industry, what the industry is saying to you about what they're getting and if it's delivering.
Yeah, I've spent my whole career, if you want to call it, like starting off in recruiting for emerging technology, cybersecurity, DevOps, blockchain, and AI. So there is a certain hype cycle that we see. This is a bit different one, I would imagine, than previous ones I've seen with crypto and that. But I think there's a lot of overwhelming fear of missing out, we're looking hearing about all this SDR automation or autonomous recruiters, or filling up your calendar with a prompt, like, and then you go in Instagram versus reality. So I see that happening. And what I continuously speak to people about is, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Are we trying to build a full system from the ground up to try and get everything in, spend 6 months while you're paying for that, while you're building that, and you're still paying for what you have bought, and then you've got double the cost. This is maybe not as what you dreamt of, but we have seen now in the last, say, 6 months, a lot of what happened was a lot of people in the market were coming and saying, we can do everything all in one, here's your one trick pony. Then they get in and maybe it's not as glamorous as what they seem. So we actually get a lot of people coming to us then going, well, they're thinking more about data admin tracking. It's like, well, they're not really thinking about how we approach clients, what it looks like, what it feels like, even for them. The old industry, we're different, but it's like then they send the same CVs with same blurbs, and then it's trying to fight over ownership. It's more, can we actually show them we're doing something different, or feel something different? And actually, one of the big things that we see is that people are actually catching on and getting more back to, right, I'm trying to solve this problem. So yeah, I do see that the hype cycle is, everybody's kind of started trying things, and then nothing's been, taking the lead or whatever. It's all in one. But then, yeah, we've started to see a lot more people then talking about building their own whole system. So I suppose that's something that I've been doing for the last 6 months, building internal systems for floats, which has changed the way I work. But then it's also, it's tempting to go and try and build a whole system, and then you're spending, should I be building a video generator that's connected to all the rest of them to try and create this perfect marketing video? I'll come back to you in 6 months, but at the minute I'm saying like that's too tricky. But this week I built how are we looking in AI search? So if I'm going to do that every week, instead of going in and prompting and searching, I've built it so that I can press a button next week and it gives you gaps to fill the gaps. Have we improved that? So it's small tools. The email one is a good one, but then, when you are looking to, I suppose this is like the kind of the floats thing as well. We're trying to create something that looks good consistently, that's talking to your systems, that's tracking everything. Like the more complex, the harder it is. Like, you're not going to build Gmail, but are we looking at Gmail and then taking all that context so that we can use to improve our output? Like, I think it's not build versus buy these days. It's like, what should I build and what should I buy, and can they connect to each other so that we are getting the benefits of automation?
Yeah, because there's a risk there around the build yourself, isn't there? Because you've got to keep maintaining that product. There could be an upgrade of Chrome. There could be all sorts of changes to the contact points between the databases, and you blink and then it's broken again. So I like that. What should we build? Because there will be stuff that's easy to build and low risk and just makes sense to build in-house. But then there's the more complexities around, okay, well, let's leave that for the true software developers to build a robust platform, which my team of 10, 20, 80 people, whatever it might be, can switch on every single day and it just works.
Yeah, I can think I was forced into it, if I'm honest. So I really seen this Kenzo thing, and it was about to launch, and it was about a year I was waiting, and I had multiple inboxes. Everything was scattered all over the place, really. And now I just ended up building this thing that really has changed everything, and I'm like, that's really cool to build something that's impacting your productivity. It's just making sure that you're not trying to build everything and automate the whole thing. We're not automating ourselves. There's still human in the loop there, as everybody says, but we do. You're never going to. I always kind of talk about it like as a Formula One car for some reason. I don't know where this come from, but if I get into a Formula One car, can I start it? You get a rally driver that probably can get it going well, but if you give it to Lewis Hamilton, it's a different beast. It's a different machine. So I kind of look at it going, just starting somewhere, sticking a small piece of the problem that you're trying to solve, and then looking at it, how can we connect it to certain systems? And there's a lot of small wins at the start. And then you start to become more mature about it, and then you see what works and what is not possible. Well, it is probably possible if you had a dev team and 6 months to dive into it. But yeah, there's been plenty of times I started building something and going, okay, I'm never going to get this to as good of output or the product that I can just sign up for a month, test it out. You know what I mean? So that's been a big learning curve for me. Yeah, I've kind of looking at credits and stuff.
I have another saying. It's like putting a V8 on a pair of roller skates. If you got too much power and then you just don't have that platform, God knows where you might end up. So you can add that one to your kit too, Shaun.
Yeah, nice. I'll steal that one.
It's very tempting, isn't it? I mean, BK and I are in a few groups where there's very enthusiastic recruiters who are quite tech savvy and spend their days looking at ways to put flows into place, vibe code things to make it more efficient. I was talking with a client yesterday around LinkedIn's, hiring assistant tool set there. And I think you touched on it briefly, Shaun, is that, if everyone's using AI for everything, right? Where is our relevance as an industry, as a human, as a professional, to have that, as you said before, human in the loop, that contact point between one human to the other. If we're not doing that stuff, then we will be replaced 100%. Guaranteed.
100%. And I see it all the time. I talk about this every week, too much probably. My wife's probably sick of hearing me talking about it. But it's, I talk about communication channels and like actually spending time being human, especially that first line, that subject line. You can blast off 500 emails that might never get one response. But if you're changing that communication line into something more personal, where it's, say, if it's your LinkedIn, for example, your messaging changes, your tone changes, you're referencing the points maybe in their LinkedIn or something they've done or the post or something. And we're nearly kind of, which I kind of like, is getting to the point now where people are trying to prove they're human as much as possible,
Putting obvious mistakes in things, right? So that
Yeah, that's kind of isn't it, a wee trick, isn't it? Like at the minute, but I think like the more we see, say, like for example, we used to do like some services for companies, and you'd like have a voice note or like something referencing their video, and then it becomes right. Well, that actually is a person. But then with your last episode, you do look at some of the advancements now of the avatars and their voices, and that has jumped a lot in the last 6 months as well. So yeah, it's interesting, but I do think you can always tell for some reason, not always maybe at the minute, but 99% of the time you feel it's human. I don't know how to explain it.
I think it's a gut thing.
We're very, very good at picking up nuances. It's part of our DNA survival toolkit. If something's off just by a hair, we'll get it, right? And your Insta's probably as flooded as mine with fake people on there, and there's just little glitches still. But to your point, for how much longer? Hey Jen, for example's come across leaps and bounds in the last 6 months, and it's very difficult to pick the human versus the generated image.
We're at the point now where people, if people are not going to, if they can solve the problem, they're not going to care so much. I think pretending to be not AI when you are is just dumb, but we're leaning into these new tools and people are almost expecting it to be AI. I've got to the point now, probably only in the last couple of months, where I've gone, well, okay, when I do customer support, I know that I'm going to get to an AI. Now, I have to say, most of them have been, once it's got to a problem, they've been useless. But in the beginning, I didn't even think that they were AI, and I didn't really care because they were solving my problem. But I cared when they were still pretending to be human, when they were kind of acting more like a human further down the conversation, and they just clearly had no idea. They just keep sending me on a loop, So I think most people now are kind of happy if it's AI, as long as it's helpful and it's not pretending not to be. That's how I feel about it.
It's the reason why Uber is really good, because people didn't have to phone taxis anymore. There's always certain things that you can automate. Like I think when you're trying to sell or it's first approach, like I talk about that first line a lot, the subject line, and what it feels like it's forcing personality out of people. The one thing I don't think it'll ever crack is like being truly funny. The humor can be, you laugh at your own things when it's coming back to you, but if something happens, I met Andrew and you at Talent X, we talk about your great talk. That then registers to you that that's me. You probably could have got somewhere, but I can reference something that really happened. And then, now you start to become personalized, not like, hi, I see you're in Sydney, how's the Opera House, and send this to everybody. Like, more about, can we register more of what happened in real life and take it into the business world? And then, I don't mind getting AI message or email sometimes, but if somebody's trying to sell me something and it feels like they've sent this to 1,000 people and they're wanting to catch, I don't think that ever changes. Really, we can get better at it. It might change slightly, but especially in recruitment, when it's such a human to human, emotional changes of jobs, families, more like you're thinking about mortgages, you're trying to take somebody out of a job that's happy, like then they have to go in. It's such a big life thing. There's different aspects as well to recruitment. You look at high volume where people are happy enough, they want a job, they'll do an AI interview and that's fine. But if it's like Anthropic looking for their software engineer here, it's like probably going to be a different process, different, everything really. The search is different. Are they going to, if you had, I don't know, maybe Anthropic's a bad example, would be happy enough to do videos, but the normal businesses that are looking to hire really good people, you want to be taking that story to them. And your first impressions as well of the company is if it's passed off to somebody else, like an AI, and you've got 3 other interviews with real people in the office, like I think that still wins every day.
It's interesting. I was listening to, I can't remember who it was, might have been Dan Martell, talking about the human on the loop now. So we talk about the human in the loop, but this is the human on the loop because now the agents are interesting. I know you've started to put out some more agents, haven't you, Shaun, as well, in your platform?
Yeah, exactly. So we called our agent Sola, and really one of the things that why we kind of got there was people were looking at going, right, well, who am I sending it to? And how am I getting their details? Is there somebody hiring? I don't have all day to go through not just LinkedIn and Seek, or Indeed, it's like career pages. And then what the big thing for is like data and context. So if we can go, here's all our data and CVs. Now I could take a job brief and instantly shortlist, and everybody can do everything. Everybody can say they can do candidate matching, they can do all this, but we like to test this. We really like to push it for real life. So Jason, who we all know, he was like, right, I just placed a lawyer. I had a short list of 5 people. Let's put it to the test. And we didn't get any involvement. We just let him do it. And it picked out the person and told them why. And, when we can start to test real life outcomes and that they don't know, and then start pushing it to see, right, well, is this candidate matching just ticking certain things or keyword matching, or is it going into the depth of their whole CV? Is it weighted on everything? And then taking that data in context and going, right, well, what's on the internet? And then if you scrape all the internet, is like, then you've got such deep context and data to make proper matches, which I was again skeptical about candidate matching about a year and a half ago, and a year ago even, to be honest. But now with the ability to connect this and connect machines, and then it's like being able to, even with our creation process for floats, we talk about this, should we just show this in the demo? Because you can go and create the perfect float. It might take you a couple of minutes, but if you go into Sola, you can go create a float and it's done instantly, So there's a lot of different things going on. I've been building my own internal agents as well. And one of the things you were talking about there, I call it more of an AI supervisor, is like it can read my emails, prioritize them, and it can even draft. But I don't want that to ever be automated. I always want to be like, I'll always edit everything, because I think that anybody that's really using AI and knows how to get the most out of it will understand that it's 80 to 90% there, and you have to still, and you don't have to, but I think it's better results. I feel like it has to be something of how I would speak, or it feels ingenuous, or like it's not as authentic.
Yeah, so I hear you. Are you using Claude to build those as well, Shaun?
I'm a bit of it, right? So I build my internal app on I've got a Claude agent that I can build in, but then I have been building like web apps for everyday life and different things on Lovable, but then I'll use my ChatGPT that I've had for 2 years to build some of the prompts for that. So I do a bit of everything. I think it's like AI stacking, and that's again with what our agent does. It's not like, here's just OpenAI. We connected to Perplexity. We connected to OpenAI, your system. So there's given more data and context to use the real best use case. I think that's the benefit of being able to now think about the operating system rather than an ATS, where we can connect to everything to help the data make more sense in the context, so that our output's always going to be improving. If that makes sense.
Total sense. Yeah.
I was just thinking, we were chatting with Bill Bullman last week or a couple of weeks ago, weren't we, BK? That's yet to come out. And we were talking around HackerJob and their AI agent, Archer. And I think in their first very short period of time, it hit 1 million ARR, one of the fasting AI recruiting products. I think it is the fastest AI recruiting product to hit the market to date. I think we are at that sort of tipping point. I'm going to challenge you, if we catch up in 2 years' time, or when we catch up in 2 years' time, sooner, I think you will be just handing off some of those emails for your agent just to process. I think you will have faith in the machine. And I think it will be a waste of human time for some things, not everything. I'm a huge proponent of the human in or on the loop, but there'll be some stuff that just isn't worth our energy to focus on. So it could be picking up that we've had a conversation and I say to you at the end of the call, hey, Shaun, I'll send you a couple of options for us to catch up in 2 weeks' time. My agent should be doing that. We know each other well enough for it to flick something across to you saying, hey, Shaun, it's Sarah here, Andrew's agent. I'm just picking up on the conversation you guys just had. Here's a couple of options for 2 weeks' time. Let me know if any of these work. If none of them do, flick me across some other alternatives. And she might be talking to your agent when it comes into your inbox, mate. So
Yeah.
I reckon it's going to happen very quickly. That for transactional stuff, you go to an ATM now to get your cash out. If you ever get cash out, you don't go into have a chat with the teller behind a counter, do you? And I think for some things, the transaction reliance on human to human will be negligible.
Funny you say that, because that happened about 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. It was coming up to that 2 short weeks, and we done a demo, and they were like, right, well, we want to use the demo or the trial period, which is now a credit-based system, by the way. We got rid of it, but a trial in 2 weeks' time. And you know, when you're coming back in after 2 weeks, short weeks, and you're like, what's going on? But it had an email from my notes from the chat, and it had it already ready. And I think that was the first time I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I would have got round to that, thought about it. And then even the detail it had in the tasks and the next steps. And I did just press the button that time. So you're probably right there. Yeah. And like when it starts to be able to learn how you write, like genuinely, like through all your emails and your responses, and then it sounds better than you said. That's when it starts to get scary. But yeah, I think.
Well, I was coaching a very senior board member around AI because he's in his 80s and still actively in the recruitment space. Didn't think he would be, but he is. So he said to me, Andrew, can you spend some time with me? Just give me some AI coaching. So we're doing that. And he was speaking to a professional who was exiting out of a very senior role. And he put the resume through safely. We made sure it was all guarded so it wouldn't go out to the public domain. But he put that resume through and got it to do a reverse market spiel. And he said, there's no way I could have written this as well as detailed with things that he would have probably thought of, but on the 7th or 8th revision of that. So it's come such a long way. I think we'll be at a stage where the machine will be doing a little bit more.
Sorry, Andrew. So on that, is that just to keep it safe? Is it that you just have to have a paid version, or is there other?
Yeah, I always recommend pay you $20 or whatever you want for your model. I don't care if you're using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. I think that debate is hype. Just pick one and just start using something on a regular basis for most things. And the minuscule, better portion that you'll get out of product one versus product two is irrelevant if you're not using it. But yes, keeping it safe. Yeah, so all those paid versions have safeguards in there so you can keep it private.
So you don't have to set anything up. You just know that if you have a paid version.
There is a setting in there. So I'd always recommend checking in your settings and privacy for, Claude or OpenAI or Product X, making sure it's not educating the broader knowledge LLM base. So
that was one of the things we had. The first thing we started with was like the PPI. So none of it goes to OpenAI, and you train your own models, so it's even more secure. But that was one of the things that we had to really just focus on as like number one. And then with you're talking about the summaries and that. So we added this thing. For me, as like an ex-recruiter, was probably one of my favorite little things. Is like I done like DevOps recruitment for 8 years, and there's hundreds of AWS services that I would never even be able to ever get around. And I was starting to do certifications to understand them more. But then when you get a CV and you put it in and goes, right, this is not just a role. This is exactly what tools and technologies they were using in their project. The depth of that, I don't know if I'd ever been able to understand that role in as much detail unless I was actually a DevOps engineer. And it's amazing. And it's like, right, well, if you've got this stuff in, your chat GPT, is that connected to your ATS, or are you jumping between like different systems, or do you have something that is all in one so that the next time you come back, it's there, or your consistency, or, there's different things there. So yeah, it's pretty interesting times with that.
I think that also feeds into, used to be about faster. And now it's more outcome based, now, and it's about value. So outcome and value. So if we can get all that sort of information and valuable data for the client and the candidate, that just blows up. Using that data or whatever you've got to bring in more value to them is really powerful, as opposed to what they would have got before when we didn't have that capability to do that. So the quality of the output and value to them is going through the roof, I think. I've been listening to a few podcasts with like super billers that are just, 1 or 2 person, mostly 1 person businesses. And that's where they're really leaning into is doing so much research that would have taken a research team, or they would have had a full-time researcher before. Now they're doing it and they're getting better results with Claude or Perplexity or whatever they're using, and then turning that into real value to help the client. So I think people who aren't doing that, who aren't focusing on using AI to give more value, to your point before, Andrew, they're going to just be left behind.
Yeah. I think if you're relying on a workflow that's automated from, prospecting to post-placement care and everything in between, your days are numbered. Yeah, I was talking with a search firm out of Melbourne during the week, and to your point, BK, they used to have a team of researchers, but now they don't.
Yeah. I had a demo last week, and I was showing this. It's a friend of mine, and she had her last role was being a researcher for a well-known agency, and she's went out kind of on her own. And I was like, right, let's look at the agent and go, here's your top 50 companies you need to be speaking to, and it instantly done it. And I could see in the face, it was like, oh, that's what I was getting paid for. And that was the first time I'd been with floats being like, this potentially has stopped an opportunity or a role coming into this business. But you could see in her face where it was like, I would have had to do a lot of work to do that. Now it's here. Now can we get the contacts? Can we add them in? And it's so quick that you're kind of going, what else can it do? I find trouble about it, like sometimes, because it can do anything really if you prompt it right, or if you've got a real clear outcome that you're looking for. So yeah, like, and I'm thinking, to your point, do you have Claude or OpenAI? Are you switching between them all, or do you have something there that actually uses best in breed for that specific use case, but it all in one system tracked so that the next time you come back, it's there as well? So
I think you can work it out pretty quickly too, because I do use, I dabble in this and that, but I guess Claude and GPT are the main ones I go to. And I find that there's things I love about GPT in terms of, I think it's really good in strategy. Perplexity seems to be good in research, and then Claude seems to be better in the content, the creating emails and that type of thing. I haven't found that and often I'll compare, I'll put it in one and then put the same thing in the other, and I'll just start to make me think, okay, I prefer that for that and that for that. I don't think there's one yet that I'll kind of go, I'm just all in on that. So I just pay for the 3 or 4 or whatever that I dig in and use. Or Gemini seems to be free. I don't know. I guess because I've got Google for Business, I don't pay for that. But, it's great as well when you're going to want to go into YouTube, and because obviously they can access all of that stuff and, say, hey, watch this video, give me a summary, and you can turn that into your own post if you want. But Claude can't do that. So there's all these little nuances, but you don't know until you play with them and try them which one does what.
And I think, like, to Andrew's point earlier, it's the flavor of the month. Like, I think Anthropic are winning now. OpenAI will come again. Somebody else will drop something, and they're all kind of going in their own lanes. But it makes it harder for us to get the benefit of all of it. So what we really focus on is, like, can we, take Prospeo for contact information? Can we go Perplexity, OpenAI, our own model, Claude and then you're not actually having to pay for all of them going to different things. It's all one, and it's built around your base prompt that speaks in your world. So then it's more personalized. You look like it's the Netflix kind of thing. Like, we all have Netflix. We all have very different programs.
Is that like in this marketplace type scenario? What is Prospeo?
So Prospeo is just like getting contact information, but what we do in our agent is connect it to different models, different tools, so that it feels like you're using one thing, but it's probably using 6 different things to get the outcome you want.
Yeah, I was using FAL.AI, and it was pulling together. So if you wanted to create an image or an AI video or something, it would pull from like Nano Banana, and I can't even remember what the other ones all are. And I thought that's great. So if you I don't know, maybe it already exists. If you had that for Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, ChatGPT, and it pulled from the best ones, that would be good. I don't even know if maybe it exists already. I don't know.
That's kind of what we're doing.
Good flights. It's good flights.
It stops the overhead. And this is again back to this operating system, where do we really need to know everything what's happening, or do we get put in the natural search, this is what I want and here it comes? And this is where I think like the whole systems, everything you're talking to, not maybe just your recruitment tools, but your calendar interview scheduler, whatever is coming in is all coming in to help you with your output, so it's definitely an interesting time with that, because that's going to continue. Somebody will go ahead, somebody will fall behind. And then one thing my tip is, because I went through, as I said before we started, was like I had to cancel my cards, because back about 2 years ago I was getting the cheat sheets and I was going through everything, and then you end up with all these subscriptions, you haven't really learned how to use anything. And then you're back at the start. And then it's like, right, pick your tech stack. You pick your tech stack and then just stick with it and look at it going, right, does this duplicate? Is it overlapping? Is this the next stage of what you're actually trying to do? So I think spending more time thinking about the problem you're trying to solve and mapping out your workflows will save you a lot of time and money than going through and trying to test every tool in the market.
How many people actually do that? Because Roger and I bang on a lot about this, and most people do it, but I don't know how many people actually go through and take the coaching and actually do it. I think they still try to jump to the tool.
Human nature, I'm a bit like that. Even though I'm, saying that, is like the reason why I'm saying that is because I done the opposite.
Yeah, I have to force myself, that's for sure. But I do like the idea of just trying and testing and playing. I think that's how we learn. Get in, break it, fix it, get to that point where you're frustrated, but you're usually frustrated when you're learning and you break through to that other spot. I kind of like, and that's without having some sort of solving a problem. It's just get in there, play with the tool, see what it does. And then I think you can go back and go, all right, now I kind of know that stuff. Now, what is it that I actually, without putting that stuff in your business, just playing with it and then going back and going, oh, what actually do I want to achieve in the business? Oh, yeah, I realized that did that. Maybe that's going to be the right thing. But honestly, most people that I speak to that are doing well, they don't have a lot of tools. What they have, they use really well, but they don't have 65 AI tools. They, probably have 4 or 5.
Yeah.
If that.
I think that's, like really keeping it lean and taking the workflow and then going, right, is it covered? And yes, keep continues to look and try. But I think that's why we moved to a credit-based system is like, we have been thinking about now, how will we talk to different technologies? So we have our own API that you can connect to, so that we're already starting to think about when people are starting to build these systems, are we the one that's connecting so that all the output is kept by quality, So there's different ways of thinking about it, I suppose, at the minute where maybe you don't need, I think me and you were talking about this, Belinda, at one point is like, do you need the F1 car at all? Do you, if you're a successful business,
Yeah, it's horses for courses, right? You're not going to take an F1 car around a dirt track, are you?
Exactly.
And that's the other thing I get a lot from founders, especially, is they want the blueprint to do it. But the more I speak to people, every business is different. And I didn't realize until I started coaching people just how different. Well, it was 8 years ago, so I've seen a lot of them. Just how different every business is. One founder will do this bit this way, and the next one will go, no, they won't do that step. They'll do another step. Well, there's no blueprint for that. You have to go through the process and work out exactly what that is for you. And I think that's challenging when they get, sales demos, and the person who's doing the demo, they don't understand their whole business. They understand their product and what it can do. But I went through the other day and I was just looking at literally just at BD and delivery, and there was basically over 300 sort of points of failure, or not failure, but points of change that people could do things differently. And that's not even looking at the full operating part of a business either. That's just more the front end of recruitment. So I think people try and shortcut it without really looking at, and I was going to say, so, and then going through those points, that's when you can pick up what tools you should be using. So for example, the question around, well, what, now, how do you put people into your calendar? Some people will be doing it manually. Other people will be using Calendly. Other people will be using the tools that are in the CRM that are already doing it for them. And so then that dictates the next thing that they do or they don't need. And if you get it right and you take some time to do it, it's a powerful machine. That is a Formula One car, isn't it?
Yeah, that is, yeah. So like what we've done recently is starting to build like a small agents that, help your tech stack kind of talk to each other, or the email thing or whatever we were kind of speaking about earlier. So that like floats as it sits in that third out part, what's next? Who are we sending it to? What does it look like? But, we're speaking to somebody that you know quite well. I'll not say anything at the minute, but they're more of input. So can we start to go, right, how do we talk to each other? So if they're input from the meetings, from a job description or a candidate interview, is that helping the output of the jobs going out and the candidates going out? And then you kind of look, right, well, if we can build that and, that's connected to your emails, like small little wins where it's more automation, but you're using different connecting maybe AI tools in that automation, so that you really are getting the benefit of that, not just standalone products or one thing that does that. And again, we're back to the agent with the Prospeo and all the language, the models. It's like, you don't even know that. So it's like, if I want this and I've got it, like, people are not really care how the sausage made. It's like how it tastes, really. So we kind of,
So, I mean, we've talked a lot about different tool sets and what's working now, what may not working for some agencies right now as well. What are you seeing? I mean, if you had to say the top 3 things that agencies should be thinking about right now to help with their, prospecting, with their, workflow management, and then their overall ability to stay competitive in today's fast-paced market, what do you reckon those top 3 to 5 things might be, Shaun?
I think the top 3, first one is like thinking about, what the end user sees. So yes, we can like, they don't see any of your workflows or your automations. It's more about they don't. Nothing's changed on their end. So you might have the best system in place, and then you're still sending. You probably actually, if you lean too much into, like, could be sending out worse things than you were before. So what I would do is look at what I'm sending on mobile. If I'm sending a PDF CV, how does that look on mobile? Like, how do they respond to me easily if they're in a rush? Like, thinking about their inbox. So I always talk about the email inbox, and you could have 100 emails in it. So trying to grab that attention, compared to maybe LinkedIn, where they've got 4 messages, your statistics go straight up the roof. Now, I think one of the big things is communication channels changing. So email, if you look at it, it's 24% open rate, and then you go to text message, it's 98%. So statistically, without floats or anything in there, got a better chance of getting responses. Your communication changes, feels more personal. The second thing I would look at is probably, again, not back to, do I need to build or buy, or do I really, what am I trying to solve? What is the first thing you would change today if you wanted tomorrow to be different? And I think you said it last episode really well, Andrew. 6 months time, what if it's the same thing? Why is that the same thing? So looking at your systems, if it's more CVs out the door, are we speeding that up, or is it an admin problem, or is it a back end? Is it finances and Xero? Whether you would, really kind of figuring that out, and eat the elephant, how to eat an elephant, start at like a bite size and then grow into it. The third would be is probably not to think about FOMO. Like, there's a small percentage of people building this stuff. There's a small percentage of companies really like benefiting from this. So don't be getting too, what we try to do is simplify it, and that's probably the hardest part, is like really make it simple so that there's not AI. You don't feel like you're even doing AI. It's just helping you do your job better. I think, the biggest gains is the speed. Obviously, some of the stuff you can do instantly, the research, the intent signals. And I always, everything I'm trying to build at the minute is like, instead of going, right, here is something, go and find me this, is like, can I come in and it's already there for me, helping me jump to my next task, or draft and stuff, or so that your organization's better, your enrichment's better, your output's better. I think I get really quite surprised sometimes when people are like, oh yeah, I've done all this work, had a really good meeting, got terms signed, went and spent 3 weeks, got somebody really good, and then now it's the quickest thing to try and get the CV out the door. And I'm like, that's the one time where your presentation and your take care, and are we like really just getting a summary, just the summary's sake? Or are we trying to make it feel different and, show that you're going that extra 1%? I think it's like trying to get 1% than 100% in 1 week, which can be hard to do.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it's like being at a fine dining restaurant, Shaun, and you get the plate slammed in front of you really quick because the chef thinks, I've got to get it out the door really, really fast so their customer's really happy, and I've got this amazing food that I spent lots of time, but they just flick it through the pass, and the waiter comes and flicks it onto your table, and it's not perfect. You've done all this marketing to get them through the front door, to build hype about how great the food is, the dining experience, etc. And then that last step, which is often our resume, and talking through that resume with customers. If we've not, and we've got to remember, we don't have a physical product we're selling. We're not selling phones, pens, etc. So there are a few elements in our workflow that are physical, either electronic, physical, or physical. And one of those is that presentation of that shortlist. So I really, really enjoy you saying that, because I think that's something that often gets missed.
That's my highlight of this conversation, and it's so true. And that's where, ironically, AI can make it feel so much more personal and so much more your brand, your tone of voice, and having it very elegant and as you want it to land. Yeah, that's super powerful. It's a little bit like I was saying before, that some of these podcasts I've been listening to are these super billers at the moment that are just putting so much effort. Well, not so much effort. They're being strategic. They're being clever about it.
They're taking time to review each stage, right?
Exactly, and make it a beautiful experience for the client. and their candidate, that's number one. That's good. I like that.
Surprises me, we go and you meet a new client, they have a great experience with you, but then the next thing, it's you and them, like the next thing that they're getting is the same as everybody else, and they don't know maybe about your business, your colleagues or whatever, and it's really sometimes not relevant because you're trying to help that person that's in front of you. But I think if you're sitting saying we're different, this is how we do it, and then you say, the amount of times you see people send the same CV with the same, like, you just kind of lose credibility. And also for me, it's the effort thing. It's like if somebody puts a bit of effort into more of a personal message to me, I'll definitely go back to them. But if it feels like somebody's just gonna, as you say, slam the plate down, I'm going to definitely use that one, Andrew. But yeah, it's the experience, and I think we'll start to focus on a lot more on human experiences. How is this important to me? Is this for me? Is the first question they'll ask them. Now, can I read on a bit? Is this helping me? And the buy-in has changed. A lot more people have information and they make their decisions, compared to maybe, years ago when you would walk into the shop and people are just selling, or in the markets, people are selling at you all the time. People are now have got so much choice and information that they decide what they want. And again, that drove us from driving away from trials to more of a credit-based system where you choose, we're not going to chase you. We're not going to lock you in. We believe that we've seen it. We see it every day, people winning and loving the product. So, we can't serve everybody. We're not trying to serve everybody. So if more people can go in and try it and they think, okay, this is different, ask their clients. Like, that's the first thing I say to people, go and ask them what they think. And then if they love it, then you know that you're onto something, because regardless of what you think about you and what you're doing on a daily basis, again, it's really important that you're thinking about the other person at the other side.
100%.
I picked up a lot of gems. I don't know about you, BK. I think we've got to highlight a few of those in the meeting notes. So thank you so much for rejoining us after a couple of years off the potty, to have you back on. And let's not leave it as long, because I think things are going to evolve ever so quickly over the next period of time. Let's not leave it 2 years. Maybe we can do it 1 in 6 to 12 months there. But Shaun, before we wrap, what's one thing you want every recruiter who's listening or watching this to walk away with from our chat this week? And secondly, where can people find you and find out more about Floats?
Yeah, good question. I think don't get too worried about what you're seeing on LinkedIn and all this stuff, because that's 99% of people are not as far ahead as you think. I think starting something and with a very simple use case, just get started, feel around it, get the feel for it, start to learn about it, because it's not going anywhere. It's going to come very quick. So don't feel too worried, but do kind of start.
Get started, like it. And where can people find you, Shaun? And tell them a little bit about Floats. Just do your little 15-second elevator pitch for us.
Yeah, cool. So you can find us at floats.ai. You can sign in, have a go. It's a credit-based system. If you're liking it, you can always upgrade to get more of the AI stuff and more data. For us, it's more about, what's going out. How do we come across to clients? What's next? Who's hiring? How do we have the right people? Why are they the right people? Do we have their information? How are we approaching it? So more of that, what's next, rather than what's happened and tracking what's happened. We're looking at, where are we going in the future.
Amazing. Alrighty. And best place to contact you if somebody wants to have a chat, Shaun?
Yes, Shaun at floats.ai, or just reach out on LinkedIn. I think we spend way too much time there, so I'm always there.
Very good. Very good. Well, mate, thank you very much for joining us again. It was great seeing you in person, in human, last week at TalentX, and look forward to catching up with you shortly over a real coffee in person again. So speak soon, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks, Shaun.
Thank you, guys. Talk soon.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of The Tech Savvy Recruiter. If you'd like to stay up to date with the latest recruitment trends and insights, make sure that you remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Also, if you'd like to speak to Andrew about turning your tech stack into your secret weapon, or myself around creating an agency that delivers you more money, more meaning, and more freedom, we'd absolutely love to chat. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for your support.